Welcome to episode 61 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host. The thing didn't bing, and I wasn't sure whether we were rolling or not. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week as I'm joined nearly each week by my co-host, Doug Griffith.
Afternoon. Yes, it is afternoon.
It is.
We're here at a different time today, so.
Yeah, we're hoping to start doing these in the afternoon. I'm thinking of maybe calling it the Nooner or something like that. We'll call
close enough than 5 o'clock was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm on the wagon this week, unfortunately, as I was telling Doug before we got on that I put on 5 pounds, and when you've lost a lot of weight, you're really sensitive to putting on weight. So I haven't had a beer in 5 days. It's awful. It's awful, but it helps me. Like, I had to stop for gas, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll run in and get some crap. And I'm like, if you run and get some crap, then you're not going to have beer for 7 days, and nobody wants that. Trading booze for food will always keep you honest. I believe that. So want to get a weather report.
Weather report. Cloudy today, but not as hot as it's been yesterday and today. Both have been very nice days in the lower 80s. Yesterday, I thought was rather on the dry side. The humidity seemed to be down, and cloudy, which kept the temperature down some, but I think it's back to the 90s tomorrow.
Yeah, we got some nice rain last night, though.
Yes, we did
in Delmar, anyway. It was here too, because I was out at Seaford this morning covering a golf tournament, and it's one of those things where, like, everybody's like, I hate the rain, and I woke up this morning, I'm like, we get a little lightning. I won't be taking pictures in the golf. and I have no problem with that. But I said, I'm like, you sure we're going to do this? And they're like, we're doing it. Get your ass out of bed. So that was in my morning.
It makes nice green grass.
Yes, it does. It does. I love the rain. Earlier this week, my wife and I actually took a little dip in the pool when it was pouring, which is something that, you don't get to do unless you're a kid a lot of times. But it had been so brutally hot, and we'd already gotten into our suits, and I was just committed to getting in the pool and start training. I'm like, too bad. And so we stayed until the thunder and lightning came.
Yeah, I just don't like when it starts thunder and lightning close to you.
Yeah, you're like, okay, out we go.
Yeah.
So all sorts of stuff this week. But before we get into the little bit of news that we have, we're going to talk about, we were actually at an event together this weekend at the Laurel Bike and Brew.
Last Saturday.
Yep.
And it was another hot day that day.
That was brutal. That was the day. Did it rain? It rain that night? Or was that Sunday?
I think it was Sunday.
Sunday was the day that I got in the pool in the rain.
Yeah. But Saturday just was a hot day. In fact, I was telling you a little while ago that they didn't have as many walk-in registrants this time. I think they already had 30-some, and last year they had 100. But yes, last year was a much cooler day than this year.
Yeah.
So the walk-ins that they normally had didn't occur. But they still had a very nice turnout.
Yeah, they said 500 people. Yeah. They had 500 registrants, which is cool. I'm rooting for Laurel now because I'm working for the Laurel Star, and it's in my interest to. Plus, we got to see. I'm gonna go meet him in an hour, and his name isn't Justin. That's all I know.
Yeah, but Laurel's great. I think where they had it down by the Broad Creek was a park. It's really nice down there, and just for biking, this area is nice because it's fairly flat. You don't have the hills.
Well, you have the Eastern Shore Hills, which is something that I got to be cool about because when I worked at the hotel, we used to host a lot of Seagull Century people, and that's where I learned the phrase Eastern Shore Hills, which is the wind, because the wind. When you live in a flat place, if you have wind, it can be you might not notice it if you're biking along, but if you're biking along on your 60th mile, you're gonna notice that wind.
But still, I'm from up in the mountains, Western Maryland, and this is just took me a while to get used to being so flat here. Up there, you bike, you may be going up 1,000 feet, but then you come down 1,000 feet on the other side too. So.
No, that was a lot of fun. I was just there recently in your neck of the woods. You're Frostburg? Are you from Frostburg?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We were up in Frostburg. I told you we went to this little. Did I tell you weren't here? I told Sean. Oh, we went to this awesome hipster cafe there in Frostburg. Well, have you been back recently?
Not for, I guess, 3 years.
Right. So there is a candy store on one of the side streets.
Okay.
And that's been there apparently since my wife was in college, so at least since the 90s. And then across the street from that diagonally across the street, there's this little hipster cafe place, and it was awesome breakfast. I wish I could remember the name of it. Sorry. I'm like, oh, I got to tell Doug, and then I didn't think about it until a month later.
Yeah. But there used to be a cafe right on Main Street that was really nice and had a lot of, I guess, organic style foods, and I forget what the name of that was too.
There's a couple there. Well, we went to a couple places when we were living there.
Yeah.
When we were visiting there last time. I went to a couple places on Main Street, but this place was new. The other thing that was interesting about Frostburg, made me very jealous, and they have a movie theater, a downtown movie theater that's still open, and they were rerunning the Maltese Falcon on June 15th.
It's the Palace Theater.
Is that what it is? It's so cool. I'm like, I would love to have gone to that. Anyway, go to Frostburg. It's fun.
Yes.
Oh, and there are hills. That's the thing. So what was cool was when we were driving home, going down the hills, I can't imagine what it must be like for the truckers. That must be very, very difficult.
And Frostburg's had some bad crashes in town. The main road, which used to be Route 40, was the main thoroughfare through the mountains and west in this area, has been changed, and now Route 68 interstate put through, I guess, 30 years ago or so. But sometime in I think the 70s, there was a truck came down through town, lost its brakes, and killed some people, and had a big fire in town. There was one of the restaurants. He plowed right into the restaurant.
Jeez.
It burned up, but anyway, it was not good.
Yeah, no. They have those. They have the turnoffs. Then I don't know if they had them at the time.
They had turnoffs. They had mandatory places you were supposed to pull off, but
didn't help.
Right. He still lost his brakes. So.
Still lost his brakes. That doesn't make my brakes start working. Yeah. So anyway, so this weekend we were at the Bike and Brew, and Doug doesn't get to bring beer.
No beer, but I did serve soda. We had root beer, ginger ale, and one of our teas, the Berry Blast tea. Root beer was a tremendous hit. Everybody said it's like what they remember from their younger years. And tea was good, and a lot of people came back for both tea and ginger ale. But anyway, shows people what you can make at home.
Yeah, and well, the one lady when I was standing there, I think she's the lady that's on the picture for this week's show. She was from Snow Hill, and she came looking for the root beer from last year. She remembered it from.
Yeah, I didn't remember what I saw last year. Root beer was very popular.
Also, one of the things that I think is very cool about the event is it's like an acknowledgement that like craft beer and biking kind of go together, and the town either hasn't attracted a brewery or it hasn't. Laurel's got a way to go, and I don't think anybody thinks it doesn't, but it does have Abbott's, which is a really cool place where they serve lots of excellent craft beer. And actually Dogfish had a takeover that night. And so, but this idea that towns are acknowledging, hey, if we add beer to whatever else we're doing, it's going to be a draw because people come and they want to have, they're expecting access, I guess, to craft beer, not just any kind of beer, I guess, at the end of the day.
Not just the Bud Nor, of course.
Yeah, not just
some good beer.
The good beer. And also, it was kind of nice to hear you complimented so much. I don't know how much. Do you know how much they love you over at the Laurel Chamber of Commerce? They're like, Doug and Patty this, Doug and Patty that, Doug and Patty the other thing. It was really cool. I'm like, yeah, well, I was just over talking. They go, oh, Doug, and they're going to tell me all of the. I'm like, yeah, I know. Doug and Patty, you're cool.
We try to chip in. I mean, I didn't get to do much, but I, load or unload chairs or whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
But
it was very cool. So anyway, they love you over at the Laurel Chamber. Looking forward to the upcoming beer season. I will be in. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to stop at the Dewey Brewery this weekend, but I might give it a shot. I might have a book signing in Bethany Beach for anyone who cares. Saturday night at 6 at Bethany Books. Come on by. I'll be with a guy who wrote a book about the Orioles. He's a reporter for the Baltimore Sun.
Okay.
And he wrote a book like 100 facts every Orioles fan should know or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, both of us. I think I might actually bring beer this time because generally I don't, but I feel like it would be. I don't know. The Dogfish guy is always very popular when he brings beer, but I mean he's also giving it away for free. So we'll see. So one of the items that caught our eye this week. So we're a little off kilter because it is the middle of the day. Sorry, but it was carrot beer, and this is in New Zealand. They're currently making carrot beer with using it says 16% carrot juice in the wort. And so, and it's called Wabbit Season beer, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. So how would that work? What do you?
I don't see where I mean, it's like we've made beers if we put grape juice in. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a whole lot of sugar in carrot juice, but you get to some of the flavor, mm-hmm. and it make a nice orangey color to the beer.
Yeah, that's the beer. Yeah. So how about apples? Is that something that you can
put apples
just
in?
Water's just cheaper is the only thing?
Yeah. But I mean, apple juice, you can put any kind of juice in beer that you want.
And you would put this in the wort, and would it have
probably you could, it depends. If you're doing it fresh, you'd probably put it in the last at flame out at the end of the boil. If you're actually getting something that's been processed and somewhat pasteurized, it can go into fermentation at any time, mm-hmm. because it is stable. But it can be added. Most of the fruits you don't want to boil too much because you're going to drive off those aromas.
Oh, I see. That's what I was getting at. And so if you bought the pasteurized stuff, I guess the yeast could still eat that sugar, right? It's not,
sure.
That's not.
Sure.
And is that the kind of thing that would continue to you'd have to kill off the yeast to make it stop eating that?
No, it don't want to eat so much sugar. I mean, right. That's the way typically beers are. It'll eat all the fermentable sugars. There's mm-hmm. always some residual sugars because that's why you use hops to bitter the beer to counteract that sweetness. But the brewing process creates different types of sugar. Most of them fermentable, but some are always not fermentable. Hence, you need the bittering.
Very cool. And so, as long as we're talking about bittering, we're going to skip to the next one, which is the great hops shortage, which may or may not be occurring.
Haven't heard anything yet, but I hope. I know 6 or 7 years ago we had a great shortage, and it was because of a lot of the farmers were planting corn. They had previously had hops. They plowed them under because corn was the big thing. They were given premiums for corn.
Yeah, when corn's up,
right,
everything else is out.
Yeah, but I haven't heard anything recently. And also, there were not just that corn issue. There were some crop failures in different parts of the world, mm-hmm. But the overall acreage in hops was down at the time.
Now, how hard is it to pelletize? You need a machine to pelletize?
Yes.
Hops, and would you grind them up? Do you know about that process at all?
I've never seen the process, but yes, you grind them up, and then the pelletizer pushes it under pressure into a pellet, so it helps it last longer that way.
Right,
and it's smaller for shipping purposes,
and it keeps the flavor. And also, for home brewers, it's only a little important, but I think for the larger brewers, it's a little bit more important. When they're pelletized, they don't eat as much of the water. They don't soak up a lot of water. Does that happen with?
I'm not sure it works one way or the other, but generally with leaf, you have to use a little bit more than with the pelletized. Mm-hmm.
So. Only because the other thing I'm wondering is if you now hops are like a little bit like grapes in that they're going to have a character, a terroir, if you will, like a character.
I mean, they have flavor, and yes, the soil and environment does make a difference in that final flavor.
Now, we grow so much here. Are there hops we can't grow? I know that the Pacific Northwest, they grow hops there because they can.
We can grow almost any hop here, but some are more or less desirable. I mean, there are places that hops grow better, different varieties grow better, and if you're going to do it on a commercial level, generally you do a planning of a lot of different hops and see which one grow best. Some of them are more susceptible to mildews and downy mildew.
And we have a lot of that here.
Yes, and that's because a lot of the, just every morning, almost every morning you have dew, and that promotes that downy mildew, and mildew
is bad.
Yes. But it promotes the growth of the downy mildew, right.
And now
all that moisture.
Now, do you still grow hops at home?
I got one Chinook plant growing, and it's doing real well.
Mm-hmm. And then what is Chinook in? What is that kind of?
It's one of the C hops, like Cascade, Columbus, Chinook, Cascade.
Those are common, right? That's what those are.
Yeah.
Those are the common hops.
Common bittering hops.
A lot. You get them in a lot of the IPAs.
Been around a while. Not one of the newer varieties. So.
Yep,
it's just a nice, good bittering hop, and bittering and flavor.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, it just made me think about it, is we've talked a little bit about the Diamond State beer, and you said that you hadn't heard of that. Have you heard of any of the older breweries from Delaware at all?
Not from Delaware, no. I spent some time in Baltimore, and there are some older breweries there, but not heard of much recently. And most of those would have been upstate in Wilmington.
Yeah, anyway. Wilmington. Yeah, they absolutely were. Looking for, if anybody has any information, I know that there is another book coming out, and I'm certainly going to borrow some of the sources from that. But we failed to get a good recipe for our own ancient ale, but we did get Wild Goose beer. We made Wild Goose beer when the last book came out, so I'm hoping to make a Diamond State beer if I can get my hands on a recipe. And I feel like it should be easier because they closed in the 50s, so I feel like I should be able to hunt that down someplace. And but it's a lager, so it would take a little bit longer, and I'm going to get Ed started on it. I know he'd be excited to participate, and I wonder, what do you think? So those are all the questions that led to what kind of hops would it make sense for them to have been using in Delaware in the 50s?
It's hard to say, but I would think they would have even had imported hops. I know Budweiser themselves imports a lot of hops, and they probably would have done the same thing.
Really? So and do you think? I know that what is Pilsner's not a hop. Pilsner's
a style.
But what's the hop in?
Probably Saaz or Hallertauer, one of what they call the noble hops from Germany.
Right. I know there was a Czech lady I interviewed for a different story altogether, and she was saying how they would get the hops from home, they would have hops shipped to them because they didn't like the American hops that were grown here. And so I was wondering, so they would probably, same thing in Czechoslovakia, probably get the same kind of
Saaz, and we do have Czech Saaz. I mean, a lot of the hops that we do get, I try to get the original German Hallertauer or Czech Saaz, English East Kent Goldings. I feel, sometimes we can get U.S. hops or German hops or, European hops. And I try to get the ones that are more true to style from what they would have been originally.
Right.
So, but if we can't get those, then I have to fall back and get the U.S. varieties. But as we talked before, though, there are differences, and even differences between years among the hops because of growing conditions.
And that must be tough when you're doing huge, like a Dogfish, where they're doing so much beer.
Well, they'd have to adjust the recipe accordingly.
So because you can't change the character of the hops, they have to change the character of everything else to deal with the hops. The hops have a lot of power over your beer.
Right. Well, it'd be mostly the bitterness, because you have more or less bitterness in that hop. There's averages, but they still and you can be out of the average sometimes.
And now the IBUs, can you test the hops for that?
Yes, you can. Alpha acid's actually what they're testing, but you need a lab to do that. You can send them off and get them tested. But most homebrewers who grow their own hops will use them for a flavor hop or a aroma hop, not for the bittering hop.
Because for that very reason,
you don't know what the bitterness is
until it's too late, unless you chew on it. And right along that, we'll move right into our discussion about the National Homebrewers Conference, which is going on now, and at which Doug nor Sean are at, and neither one of them are happy. Excuse me for I have a disease of some sort. I got a poison something.
Poison ivy or something?
I don't know. I've never had poison ivy before, but it's driving me berserk.
Looks like something pulled along there.
That's what the doctor said, because I thought I had, I don't know, something horrible, but it's not. So.
But anyway, yes,
so
National Homebrew Conference is going on in San Diego. So, we went 2 years ago to Philadelphia, and it's a great time. You get to drink some really fantastic beers. You get to meet a lot of influential people that you would not be able to meet otherwise. So they have conferences going on. I guess the most notable one that I can remember, Charlie Papazian was there. He was signing books, actually. But Mitch Keys from Stone Brewing, who's the head brewer, he gave a lecture. And actually, he's around through the conference. And you meet up with these people.
Yeah, you get to hang out and chat a little bit.
And as with us, Sam was there. I think he was president of the Brewers Association at the time. So that's generally when they meet.
Right.
Whenever they have the conference, they'll also go there. And it makes it nice because everybody in the business is there. So.
Right. And you can. The other thing, what you were talking about, getting the hops to be true to style, that's kind of the home brewers. A lot of the home brewers, like they like to make sure that they're making the beer right before they start to mess around with it too much.
Yeah, usually, and we recommend if you get a recipe, make it as is. Of course, depends upon where you get those recipes from. Internet's usually good, but you got to peruse the recipe to make sure it's what you think is going to occur. You know, anybody can make a mistake in how they document things. So yes, you should always look over the recipe and make sure it's going to come out to what you think it's going to do from past experiences. But I think we're fortunate these days that, with recipes, you can get hops from Czechoslovakia or Germany or wherever.
And you don't have to send your uncle a letter and wait for 6 months for him to send it back.
And then how's it been stored? And,
right.
What the quality was. But at least the hop producers are, storing the things in cold areas so that and then the packages we get are nitrogen purged to get out all the oxygen so they don't oxidize. So, but going back to the recipes, you can make almost anything you want these days. You'll find a recipe, somebody will break that recipe down, what they think is in it, try it, and make notes and
and you just get to finesse it, and that's what a lot of the guys seem to enjoy doing is.
And usually most things you make are drinkable, maybe not great, but drinkable.
Not your favorite, but drinkable, yeah.
And then we always recommend keep notes so that the next time you're going to make that beer, what you think you should have done to it.
Right, what you did right, what you did wrong, and
because there's nothing worse to make great beer, the greatest tasting beer, and you can't remember how you did it.
That's one of the. It's. I may have told this story on here before, but I'll tell it again. Early on in Burley Oak, they burned the mash, and they got a caramel flavor in Rude Boy, and so they called it Septemberfest because it was really one of the first beers they made. They had just opened, and everyone loved it. And Brian's like, not in a million years. I couldn't redo that. And how long did you burn it? I have no idea. So they just said it was a limited tradition, and people. When I'm around and talking, people will say, I had this beer Septemberfest, but they never made it again. And I'm like, and they're never gonna.
And some things just turn out that way.
Yeah, and it's this. Well, there's recently they found some of the Anchor Steam that they so Anchor Steam during the 88 earthquake, 89 earthquake, the big one, right? So there was a big earthquake out there in the late 80s, and the brewery shut down, the power went off, and everybody had to go home, and they left beer mid-process for, it was like 2 days or something like that. And they came back, and they're like, and it was fantastic. And they're like, again, we could never make this again. Yeah. They put it out with the label upside down, and it was called Earthquake or something like that. And somebody recently found a 6-pack.
I think that's happened. They had the World Series, wasn't it, that year?
That was it. Yeah. Happened right during the World Series. Yeah,
and I remember watching that, and it went blank. It went off the screen. Couldn't figure out why. You know, what's wrong with the station?
And so like those little accidents, you can't say, all right, well, the power was out for 2 hours and 45 minutes, and we were 15 hours into the boil, because you don't really know. You don't know precisely how long you were into it and stuff like that. But other than that,
power,
right?
Lost all your controls.
You don't know what else is going on, and that actually brings us to the bottom for being. We didn't get to talk about the. I was gonna say I'm usually pretty good. I'm not great, but I'm usually pretty good in putting the shows together and making sure we have enough to talk about. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the. There's an article in this week's Boston Globe about. How tasting rooms have to be cool, and how there's like kind of a coolness factor that's important. And I don't disagree. I don't think a lot of people are really into how cool a tasting room looks, but they do have certain expectations.
As long as they have good beer.
You gotta have good beer. You gotta have good beer. But they're especially here. I think that I haven't been in the. I haven't been in the Milton Brew Pub. Do they have the corrugated tin on the wall? They have it at Evo and at Third Wave. They had the corrugated tin, so they have like.
But I think every pub or brewery around, I think you're right, does have the blackboards, and I think the main reason is because it changes.
It changes.
Whether it's a blackboard
or
a whiteboard, it needs something that's changeable because they only have so much to go through. And you may get that last pint. The next pint on that tap is something else. So out goes that one, and in comes the new one.
And here they all look rustic. Here there are no state-of-the-art looking tasting rooms. There's always a lot of wood. There's always a lot of blackboard, and the blackboard's not just more efficient. What we were talking about before we started, when we were going over, was it was also probably like a necessity thing. Like whiteboards are a little bit more expensive and are a little bit tackier, and add those two things together, and it's just easier. And I don't know. I guess they've been using blackboards for a long time, but for the most part, it feels like one time somebody slapped their head and they're like, why have I been putting these little LED, like in the delis. They used to put up, put the marquee type words, and now everybody's like, no, we just use blackboards.
But I think the brewery versus the deli, delis get, for the most part, a set.
Yeah. They're not going to run out of ham.
Right. but even there, you'd have your deli specials, and they would have it on a whiteboard or a blackboard.
Right.
But with the brewery, every day they're going through something.
They're going through all sorts of beer. And so that's it's interesting. You forgive the ambiance if the beer's good,
Yes.
and you don't forgive the beer if the ambiance is good. And what I think the idea is we've come to kind of expect these stripped down versions of tap rooms. There's nothing, not a lot of pinball machines or things like that. Although in Chincoteague they have one of those Japanese pinball that's on the wall, and you shoot it up like that. Have you ever seen those?
Probably, like with the pins in it.
Yeah, it's got like pins in it and stuff like that. And that's cool. It's even got like a little ashtray because that's how old it is. Because when they still put ashtrays on video games, I've played pinball machines with ashtrays embedded in them. So I'm older than I look. And so that'll do us for this week. Remember to stay with us on social media. You can find us at xtremebrewing.com, EXTREMEBREWING, or XTREMEW. you know.
Yeah. But anyway, no classes scheduled at the moment. We generally don't have classes during the summer, too much going on, but we're always willing to do custom classes for anybody. Just give us a call. We're glad to do a custom class for you and your friends.
Yep, 4 or more people, preferably more.
Yeah.
But we had a couple of those ladies seemed like they might be interested. I don't know if they'll follow up, but that's I guess the upside of going to those things is you just good public relations, if nothing.
Oh yes,
just
get the word out.
Get the word out. Here we are. And that's pretty much it. Again, if you want to come out and see me in Bethany, come say hello at Bethany Books. That's on Saturday. And if you have any information on old beer in Delaware, I would love to hear it. We would really like to see if we can put together a recipe. There are 3-ish breweries. John Steckel was another brewery that was in Wilmington at the time, and then we're talking from the early 1900s to Prohibition, and then for a little while after Prohibition, but they really couldn't cut it. So, but that's it. Thank you for joining us as always, and we will see what next week, probably again at noon. We're going to try to keep this in the afternoon, make everybody's life a little bit easier.
Thanks, Tony.
All right.